What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Full Speaks back for another quick video. I really wasn't going to talk about this at all because the nature of the individual that I'm going to speak on, and the type of person that he is more like kind of like a waste of time, right? Because number one, I don't know if the guy is really sincere and believes what he says. I don't know if it's just click likes and so on, or if you really dealing with an individual who does believe what they're saying, but is so misguided, to the point where it's like it's almost a waste of time to dealing with him. You know what I mean? So whatever way we go, what I can't understand is people who gravitate towards this individual. My personal feelings of the person is that he's used to speaking the spiritual language. I believe this guy is so astray, so delusional, so astray, to the point where he's reached the level of a devil. So I purely stay away from him. Before dealing with him, I would make sure I'm clean, ablution, I have garlic, everything. Like I'm dealing with a vampire, like I'm dealing with a zombie. Okay, and I'm talking about none other than Jason Whitlock. Okay. And the reason being is he's the type of individual that pretty much there would be a consensus, right? If you understand history, and you understand sociology, okay? And I'm speaking from the standpoint of here, I don't know how familiar many of you are with the history of sociology and what started it. But sociology is a branch of the social sciences, okay, that was founded. Many people believe it was founded by a man named Ibn Khaldun, okay? You're talking around 12th, 13th century. Okay, he wrote a book called Al-Muqaddimah, okay? And it was dealing with the history of humanity, rise and fall of nations. Now, I'm not getting too off track, but I want you to kind of get what I'm getting at here, okay? And he spoke of nations rising and falling, and the key points to what made certain nations strong and what made other nations weak. And we can kind of downsize this to the idea of communities. What make communities strong, make communities weak. And when I'm speaking is sociologically, Jason Whitlock is the type of person that would make the community he's a part of weak and always keep them weak. Okay? I'm going to give you a quick story, okay, to kind of highlight what I'm getting at. And Ibn Khaldun wrote about these different civilizations. He wrote about the ancient Egyptians. He wrote about the Romans, okay, in their heyday. He wrote about the Greeks. He wrote about the Persians. And he showed many examples. Now, I'm going to give you a classic example. And this is about, this was what happened between Julius Caesar on one hand, okay, and his chief opponent in Rome, Pompey, right? When these two guys were seizing power in Rome, because both were trying to really overthrow the Republic, similar to what's happening in America right now. You got certain forces that are trying to do that, but these guys were generals in the army at this time, okay? Now, one of the major moves was, beyond, going and taking Gaul and England, was the relationship at the time with Egypt that existed at the time. Now, this Egypt was Ptolemaic Egypt, okay? This was not ancient Black Egypt. This was Ptolemaic Egypt. This was after they were conquered by Alexander the Great, who left his top general Ptolemy to run Egypt, and in his bloodline was the Cleopatra that we're going to talk about. Cleopatra and her brother, who I believe went by Ptolemy the 7th or 6th, something like that. They would use a lot of the same names, in their bloodlines and stuff like that. But this is the point here. Okay. Ptolemy and Julius Caesar ended up being vicious enemies. Okay, both Roman in their birth and their blood right and everything, but they were vicious enemies. Now follow me. It got so bad where Ptolemy had to, as a result of losing his ground to Julius Caesar, he had to flee to Egypt. He flees. Julius Caesar goes looking for him, takes the army, they go looking for Pompey, okay? When Julius Caesar arrives to Egypt, okay, he goes and meets with Ptolemy, who's right now going through a power struggle between him and his sister Cleopatra over who's going to rule Egypt. Now, his strategy was to gain an alliance with Julius Caesar, so that way this would help him to seize the power of Egypt and legitimacy. Okay, if you align with the Romans, this will give him legitimacy. Julius Caesar meets with Ptolemy, okay, with Ptolemy, okay. Ptolemy thinks I'm going to give Julius Caesar a gift, a present. All right, and when Julius Caesar is wondering what is this present, he has them bring this present, and it's a box, okay, a big box. And Julius Caesar's wondering what it is. Is this going to be some gold? Is it going to be, some type of a treasure? The servant of Ptolemy opens the box, and in it is the head of Pompey. Pompey was the person that was the biggest threat to Julius Caesar at the time, even a bigger threat than the Senate. He had an army and so on. He's the biggest threat. Pompey apparently got to Egypt first. Ptolemy's his plan was, okay, I'll take care of this problem for Julius Caesar. And what will this do? This will secure an alliance with Julius Caesar. So he thought, why? We're Egyptians, really Greek, but we're Egyptians. They're Roman, okay? I'm going to help him with this problem, and this will secure my relationship with him. An alliance. Julius Caesar looks down, and he sees the head of Pompey there. And he looks up at Ptolemy. And you know what he says to him? Basically, what means, he said, what the hell made you think you had the right to put your hands on a Roman? Julius Caesar was not impressed. He was not happy about it. He was actually upset and pissed off and offended that you, this Greek, would dare put your hands on a Roman. Who the hell are you? I don't care how me and him get along. We could be dead enemies. If I see Pompey is on sight, you got to understand. Julius Caesar and Pompey is on sight when they see each other. Vicious enemies. However, if you ain't a Roman, you ain't got the right to touch him. Now, what was Ibn Khaldun, the author of, what was he trying to make? The point he's trying to make here. He was making a point about what is called asabiya. This is in the Arabic language, but it's translated as groupthink. Groupthink, or the solidarity that you have with your people. Okay? Throughout time, this one characteristic, this one trait, is the trait that Ibn Khaldun recognized as being common amongst all people who rose to prominence, became empires, who established imperial rule. This was their trait, that they were the strongest in this trait of groupthink or asabiya. Understand? Jason Whitlock is a type of individual that throughout time, throughout history, he would have gotten no respect. Jason Whitlock is a type of individual that people in the ancient times wouldn't respect. If he was a Sumerian and he acted the way he acts towards other people of Sumer, he would have been flayed. Flayed. Okay, you know what flaying is? Flaying is when you take an individual and you convict them of whatever they did, the treason or whatever, and you peel their skin back with the sharpest knife that you can while they're alive. This was what would have happened to him. Jason Whitlock is a type of individual that in Britain, when Britain was at its height, and it was dealing with people like William Wallace, when Britain was going at it with Ireland, he would have been hung and quartered, which was the most vicious of penalties you would receive in there. They hang you until you're almost about to choke, until you're almost about to die, right? Then they release you. You're still alive, but you're out of breath. They tie you to 4 horses. You're one leg to a horse, other leg to a horse, arm to a horse, arm to a horse. Then they order the horses to go separate ways. And then the horses rip your body apart into 4 pieces. Jason Whitlock, if he was a person of England, if he was a British man, and he acted the way he acts and did the things that he's about, that's the way he'd have been treated. Jason Whitlock, if he was a person that lived amongst the Vikings, you know what he would have received? He would have received what they call the flight of the hawk. What is the flight of the hawk? It is when you're bound to a post in front of you, bound to a post, and someone takes an axe to your back, opens up your back from the top to the bottom, and then they spread your back open, take your ribs, and you pull one rib out this way, one rib out that way from your back, resembling that of a hawk. It's called the flight of a hawk. And they're doing all this while you're alive. This is the way he would have been treated. Why? Because it is a known thing throughout time and throughout history. This is consistent with every civilization. That for you, it's concerned for yourself first, then it's family, bloodline, then nation. That's where your loyalty resides. Then you move out to other people. This is a guy that has so much PTSD. And I know that's what it is. It's post-traumatic slavery syndrome. He has so much of that he does not know what type of behavior is even appropriate as a man living in this time or in any time. He would have no respect ever, anywhere. And I can also back this with scripture, but I'm not going to go there right now. If I need to, and you have questions, I can provide that as well, from the Hebraic side as well as the Islamic side, whatever you need. Okay? Because I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Okay? Now, what is it about Jason Whitlock? Is it just his sports opinions that are really valid that I don't like? If it was just that, there would be no problem with him. There would be no reason to call the guy devilish or devil. No. The problem is Jason Whitlock has a mindset and clearly is agenda-driven in his sports commentary in a way which it is obvious that his objective is to, number one, he hates his own community that God chose to make him come from. Clearly. Because what is the sign that you like something or that you hate something? Number one, when you love something or you love a thing or you love a people, you speak highly of them. This is just what you do. You speak highly of them. This is normal. When you don't like something or you hate something, you speak lowly of them. You give them unnecessary criticism. Like, for example, things that have come to be commonly known amongst pretty much everyone in the world. Consensus things. Like about Serena Williams, for example. Serena Williams, a player who's widely recognized as the greatest tennis player of all time, who had a string of dominance that was pretty much unmatched, unless you go back to some of the players like with Navratilova, Margaret Court, or others, right? I think she fell one short of Navratilova's all-time record or whatever. Though most people recognize, I think if you would have asked if Serena Williams probably played her, she would probably destroy her. This is going based off of things that you can measure. Like Serena Williams is just the fact that she could serve for 120 miles an hour. Something that Navratilova never really dealt with. Never dealt with anyone with the size, the speed, and so on. And what does Jason Whitlock say about her? He says she's not the greatest. Why? But that could be valid. But let's look into his reasoning. He says that she just hit the genetic library. She looks like, and I quote, this is Jason Whitlock's words, she looks like Earl Campbell out there. She looks like Earl Campbell out there. This is Jason Whitlock, what he says about Serena Williams. Okay? She just hit the genetic lottery. She's bigger and faster, stronger than everybody out there. Okay. So now what we're going to say is because she's faster and stronger, that means she can't be the best. What type of logic is that? That's like the logic of a person who really has no argument but is looking for something to be like an excuse to just, need I say, hate? What does that appear to be to you? Right? Would she beat Navratilova or not? Right? Because she's still bigger than Navratilova and all of that. And then what's with why are you making a reference to a man when you talk about her? And these are among other things he said. About Colin Kaepernick, for example, who I think most people can agree, though some people would disagree with what he did, like kneeling for the flag, right? Kneeling towards the flag during the national anthem. Okay. Now I do wonder, a lot of people who have a problem with that, how they feel about Tim Tebow doing the same thing. This is a question that I would have for anyone who has something to say about that. And really, this isn't really for white people. Really, I'm really having black people in mind when I talk about that. But I know a lot of certain segment of the country, especially the Christian population, Bible Belts, evangelicals, they have a major issue with abortion. Okay, so Tim Tebow kneeling because at the time the country was allowing abortions, they deem acceptable. Why? Abortion to them is murder. Is murder. Murder of what? Unborn children. Okay? They don't make a distinction whether or not the children are the result of fornication, rape, incest, or anything. They're just saying it's a life. Anyone to murder, okay? I'm not here to judge the position. We're going to just say, okay, you are pro-life. You don't want murder. Fine. Don't you know that Colin Kaepernick kneeled? Why? Because he felt as if that the country, the justice system, was not doing enough to punish cops for murdering unarmed people, and in particular here, black people specifically, because that's what has been shown all over the media. This is what appears to be these generally the situations where police officers oftentimes are just getting off, if they're even tried at all. Sometimes without making a fuss about it, they'll just brush it off and just say, well, hey, he had a gun on him, he had crack on him, or whatever, right? So Colin Kaepernick essentially is kneeling for what? Murder of what? Not drug dealers and people who are shooting back at cops, but of people who just really are running from police, getting shot in the back, maybe just resisting arrest, but still are not presenting enough of a threat where they should be shot, right? So Colin Kaepernick kneeling essentially for murder, just like the other person kneeling for murder. What did Jason Whitlock say about Colin Kaepernick? Okay, he said that Colin Kaepernick is one of the worst human beings in the history of America. One of the worst human beings in the history of America. Now let's think about the history of America. I know in Philadelphia we used to have an individual named Gary Heidnick. Okay, Gary Heidnick was a white man that lived in the middle of North Philadelphia. You know what he used to do? He used to invite people into his house, right? And it happened to about over 6 people. He invite people into his house. He would drug them, Okay, he would take them down into his basement where he had this big old hole in this cavern. He dug this big hole, a dungeon in his basement. He would throw people down into the dungeon, and he put a big board over top of them where they couldn't escape. He would tie people up in the dungeon. There were people he chopped up. There were those he used to torture people by sticking screwdrivers in their ears, rape, all types of things that this guy was doing. Jason Whitlock believes that Colin Kaepernick is at the level of someone like that. You know the type of people in America produce Jeffrey Dahmers, you know, who's to eat people and stuff like that. He wants to compare those Kaepernick to these types of people. You know, in America, we've had, I could just go on really forever. There are people who've done school shootings where they've shot little children in schools, and all these types of things. Jason Whitlock will fix his mouth to say Colin Kaepernick is on the level of these types of people. I mean, how can you not when you say he's one of the worst human beings in the history of America? Okay. Now, what I'm trying to understand is, how can any black person, any black man, not only listen to this guy, be okay with this guy, but work with this guy or do anything like that? How and why? Like, is it because he was on television and he's popular? Does that help you? Is it worth it? Really? If that's not enough, what about like just general things in general? About just black people in general. Like if you say, well, I don't see enough evidence, you know, he can disagree with Colin Kaepernick and we can find validity. He can not like Serena Williams and find validity. What about general? Well, he says just about Black History Month in general. He says that Trump should ban Black History Month. Just ban it. Just ban it. Okay? A black man saying that. He should just ban it. Why? Why? Are you arguing the argument of, you know, ignoramus Gen Zers who say that, well, if it was White History Month, we would go crazy or whatever, you know? And I'm not even going to spend time to refute that because that's so ridiculous. All right, they're not understanding that. Well, what the part of the problem is, there's a failure on the part of one generation to teach the next generation why things are the way they are. Why there exists things like affirmative action, why there exist these types of things. These things don't happen in a vacuum. People didn't wake up one day and decide, oh, let's do it. No, there were situations that led to it, right? And this isn't the place, the forum to go into that. We're just talking about one individual, okay? Things he said about other black people like Joy Taylor, you know, because it's one thing if my man was if Jason Whitlock was on a righteous mission, like, because sometimes he'll quote Bible and stuff like that, which means nothing to, really, that means absolutely zero to me. People who quote Bible and stuff like that. You got all types of people quoting Bible right now. You literally have people living lifestyles, okay, that the Bible would say puts you to death. You have people literally living those lifestyles. All right, the exact lifestyles that say if you find a person laying with such and such or doing such and such, kill them both. That's what it has in the Bible, right? People will skip over all of those verses, but they'll say things like, you know, God first on their Instagram and stuff like that. So what value does that have that Jason Whitlock sometimes will say the Lord this or that? Okay, when ultimately, what good does this guy offer or bring anybody, especially his own? And really, I wouldn't trust a person who doesn't wish for his own well to wish good for the greater population, right? He basically curses his own mother and father every time you speak against black people. You just do. By extension, that's just the way it works, okay? When you talk bad about black women in general, you're talking about your mother, your grandmother, those who sired you. You're talking about your daughters. You're talking about your aunts. You're talking about your nieces. And this is for everyone who does that. Not just Jason Whitlock types. Jason Whitlock, to me, is done. He's done. Unless God helps him. He's done. Right? He's to the level of a devil. And I mean that because not only is he gone, but he wants to lead others down the path of perdition that he's on. Because make no mistake, he's down the path of perdition. It's one thing to have a great relationship with God, but when do you know if people have anyone who has a great relationship with God who hates their own bloodline? Who do you know? You who isn't grateful for what he is. You're black, you should be grateful for that. If you're white, you should be grateful for that. If you're Chinese, whatever, you should be grateful for that. That's part of being, a person of God. The way God made you, you should be happy with it. You should understand that the body, this is just a vehicle that allows the soul that resides in it to experience the world. And through experiencing the world, through the senses, one comes to know that he must have a Lord. That's really what it's about. I'm not going to get preachy or anything like that, but that's the purpose of the body. It's not here for someone who has a white frame to say I'm better than someone with a black frame, or vice versa, someone with a black frame who says I'm better than the white person with the white frame. That's not what it's about, right? And we'll be asked about it. We'll be held accountable for it, on the day of judgment, But the point is, I don't get it. I don't get why people gravitate to this guy. Now, maybe some white people who have trouble with these things, who do believe in superiority, they like what he says, because it's a black man speaking the talking points of white supremacy, which some white people probably have a problem with it. Like, I get it. You have to be an honest person and ward that thing off, and you have to admit that any type of supremacy is wrong, and it's hard. When your people are the ones that have it, it's probably difficult to want to, give it up. So you hear this black man speaking the language of white supremacy, so that helps you feel okay. If that black man can deal with it, why can't the others? Right? How about this? Try to put yourself in the shoes of Native Americans or of black people or whatever, and try to imagine how would you be? How would you be? And then making an honest assessment of society and the world. And then answer that question. Because this guy to me is a disgrace. Period. I'm to the point I don't expect any good to come from him. So I don't even listen to him. But it disappoints me when I see other people who I thought, were smart or whatever, gravitating toward that. And it's really disappointing, And that's all I got for now. I could go on and on about this guy, statements he's made, things he said, but I think it should be enough. I think most people who know anything about him and follow him at all, they feel and understand where I'm coming from when it comes to him. So that's my question. What about the guy do you like? What do you think is good about him? For those who listen to him, 'cause I see he gets all these views. Like, what does he do to enhance your life? Really, I don't get it. I don't. So help me out, and I'll come back to y'all later. I'm really curious. Peace out.